Hey everyone, I'm Joanne Smith and welcome to Joanne's Corner. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make a 9-patch quilt block. This is beginner friendly, so grab your fabric and sewing machine and let's get started. The supplies you're going to need for today's project are your sewing machine, a rotary cutter, clips or pins, your iron and board. I have some fat quarter bundles that I've bought that have coordinating colors with what I'm using here. Here's a fat quarter. I've got these at Hobby Lobby and Dollar Tree and also Walmart. So, I mean, just get some coordinating fabric of whatever you like. I also have a 4.5-inch template here. It helps you cut, but also I'm using this for my template, for my squares. You'll need a ruler, a cutting mat, and I think that's it. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do is open up our fat quarters and we're going to press the fabric and the coordinating fabric that we want to use. Next, we're going to take our fabric and cut off these raw edges over here. I like to fold mine and just line everything up. And then we're going to cut off the selvage down here. Then we're going to turn it this way and make sure this edge is lined up and trim this and also this side. So just take your time and get all that squared up. And then over here on the fold, I like to flip my fabric around and just put my ruler right at the edge where you have just a little bit of your fabric showing, and then just cut right up through there. And that takes care of you having to cut the side of it off. It's already done. Side. Next, I'm going to use my ruler and I'm going to measure 4.5 inches from here over. And the reason I want a 4.5-inch square, the 1/2 inch will be divided in two. There'll be a 1/4 inch on this side and a 1/4 inch on this side. So 1/4 inch plus 1/4 inch is your 1/2 inch. So we have a 4-inch square, but we want to leave that seam allowance around through there. So get your ruler and just measure 4.5 inches and make sure all this is lined up with the line that you're going by. And then just, cut it right up through there. And if you have directional fabric, of course, you need to make sure that your fabric is facing in the right direction. And then just scoot this over and do the same thing to this piece. Measure off your 4.5 inches with your ruler. And you can make these squares bigger or smaller, just depending on what your preference is. But then just cut another strip up through there. Now that I have my 2 strips of fabric, I'm going to take my template, my 4.5-inch template, and I'm going to measure and cut my squares. And then just keep going up through here. And just cut your squares until you've used all of your strip. And this last piece up here is not big enough, so you can just save that for another project. Oops. So just take these apart and you've got your squares. So I'm going to cut this other one up and then I'll be right back. So after I got finished cutting out with my template, I got 6 squares, 6 4.5-inch squares from each strip. So I ended up with 12 blocks from a fat quarter. And you just need to do the same method with your coordinating color that you're going to add to it. And my coordinating color has already been cut out. It's green. So now we're just going to line up our pieces in the order that we want to sew them. So we're going to start with our pattern, and then a solid, and then a pattern, and then just go down to the next row and just rotate it. And then do the same thing to the third row. And this is what our quilt block's going to look like. Now we're ready to sew together our quilt block. And we're going to sew it in rows. This will be our first row, second row, and our third row. And we're going to start with the first row, and we're going to put this middle piece right side together with our first piece and just line up those edges. And we're going to take this to our sewing machine and sew a 1/4 inch seam right down through here. Now, if you're not comfortable doing this without pinning it or clipping it, that's okay. Just put your pin or clip in here, and then we're going to take it to our sewing machine, but I'm just going to do it freehand. Just make sure all your edges are lined up. Okay, we've got our ends lined up, so we're going to put this in our sewing machine, and I have a 1/4 inch foot on there, but I'm just going to line it up with the right edge of my presser foot, and then just sew. And then we're going to open this up, and we're going to take our other piece, our third piece, to our row, and we're going to put it right side together with our middle piece, and then we're going to sew that. Just do the same method. And we have it sewed together. That's our first row. So we're going to do this with our second row and our third row, and I'll be right back. Now you should have row 1 sewed together, row 2 sewed together, and row 3 sewed together. Next, we're going to press each row. For our first row, we're going to flip it over, and we're going to press these seams. Now I've done this 2 ways. I have opened up the seams and pressed it open, and I have pressed it to the side, like, okay, this is your lighter fabric, so you'd press it toward the darker fabric. So that's what I like the best. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to just press this toward the inside, toward our block, and then we're going to flip it and just press the front. And we're going to do all 3 pieces this way. So that's our first piece. Make sure that you got the second piece, that it's in the right place. And what we're going to do, we're going to press these toward the outside. We're going to press them toward the darker color. So flip it over and do the same thing. Just press this that way to the right and press this one to the left. And then flip it, and then just press the front. Lay it up here, and then get your next one and do the same thing. This one will be pressing toward this darker color again. So flip it, press toward the middle, press toward the middle. Oops. And then flip it and press the front. Next, we're going to put our block together. We're going to start with the bottom row, and we're going to flip it up and put our right sides together with the middle row. Now, when you place it this way, make sure, just pull it down, pretend it's sewed together, make sure that your directional fabric is going in the right direction before you clip it together and sew it. But we are going to nest our seams, and this seam is going to line right up with that seam, and we're going to clip it, or you can pin it. Might be able to see it a little better here. Yeah. See how these seams are just nested right in with each other? And then just straighten everything out. And we're going to sew it starting here and sew all the way down. And we're going to do a 1/4 inch seam. Just lower your presser foot and just take off sewing. And when you get to this seam, make sure it's pressed down before you sew over it. That way it won't be puckered. And then make sure this last little bit here is lined up. And then sew onto the end. And then when you open it up, it should look like that. Now, since we've got this row 2 and 3 sewn together, we're going to flip it over and we're going to press it. And we're going to press our seams toward these dark squares. So just press that down. Oops. And then flip it over and press the front. And if you notice, you get these crisp little corners here where you nest your seams. And now we're going to take this top piece and we're going to do the same thing with it. Make sure it's going the right way, and we're going to flip it right sides together, and we're going to nest our seams again. And then just clip it or pin it. And the same thing at our other seam. Just nest those seams. And then take it to our sewing machine after everything's lined up and sew a 1/4 inch from this end all the way down. And that should have your 3rd block sewed together. So we're just going to take this to our iron, and we're going to press this one down just like we did a while ago. And then just press your seams toward those middle dark blocks. And then just flip it over and press the front. And see those crisp little corners? And that's how you make a 9-patch quilt block. I have several blocks that I have made. Right now I'm working on making a quilted throw with these, so stay tuned because I'll have a tutorial for that coming up. But if you've liked my video and found it to be useful and helpful, please like my video and subscribe to my channel. And we'll see you soon.